All right, everyone. This is Ha with Happy Strong You. Here with the live chat with Coach. Is it Roan? Is that how you say
Rowan,
your first name?
yes.
Rowan.
That's it.
Okay. Theron is that correct?
That's the one.
On your last name. Okay. Cool. Well, nice to finally meet you. Kane actually introduced me to you. So one of the things that tell you a little bit about how we are able to find each other. I started this live chat during COVID times about 3 months ago, and then just I guess kind of kept going with it. And then Kane just kind of jumped on, and I got to know her a little bit more. So, and she said, "Hey, you need to get my coach on." So I was like, "Sure, would love to have you on." So appreciate you coming on here. And she actually jumped on. So she's saying good morning.
Yes,
and on there.
Okay, what was the purpose of this sort of the show or this live podcast or thing? What was the reasoning behind that?
Now you're interviewing me. Good question.
Oh, sorry. No.
So no, cool. I appreciate it. The initial thought behind all this, the initial thought was, hey, people needed some sort of routine. So it's like every morning around 9 a.m., Monday through Friday, Central Time. I just say, hey, we're just going to do a live chat. I'm going to try to get as many people on just to start, to have a little bit of social interaction because we're going to lack that during the quarantine times. Yeah. So that was one. And then also to try to get some positive, like a positive vibe going, especially during these tough times. And so that was another goal. And also talk more about jiu-jitsu along with that. And then mental health was another thing because I know a lot of us was going through some anxiety, some depression and so forth. Yep. And so, and now I'm just kind of branched out a little bit because people are starting to go to work and so forth, but I'm still, trying to capturing those main points. So that was the main thing is just the positive vibe, helping us through anything, any anxiety or, any mental health that some people are struggling with nowadays. So I think you are able to help us through some of that during the dark times that we may struggle. So talk about you a little bit. I want to get to know you a little bit more. I know we only have like 30 minutes. So if we don't get everyone's questions in, and that's something that we also do is real live questions that people kind of chime in. If they have any questions, we'll try to plug it in and answer some of those questions. So talk about, introduce yourself a little bit. I know you're brown belt, correct?
That's right. Yes.
In jiu-jitsu. Yep. Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started jiu-jitsu, and you're out in Melbourne, Australia.
That's correct. Look, I've always been in martial arts. I've always aspired to martial arts. And I started at a young age doing karate, as probably a lot of kids in daycare, sort of going up and down, doing katas and patterns and things. And when I got probably around 13, 14 years of age, I then decided I want to do Taekwondo. So I then went into the ITF Taekwondo world. I did fairly well. Got national colors, competed at world champs a number of times. I've been national champ in my category and age and everything else. And when I turned 17, one of our instructors at that stage was working at nightclubs as a bouncer or venue security. And as he said, look, he needs someone to come and do some doorman work. And I went to work the door. Just thinking I'm going to pat people down, look for weapons, look for drugs, type of thing, and then let them in. Little did I know at that young age that there is a lot of violence happening in the real world there at nightclubs when people are drunk and there's brawls and things happening. And I found it was actually one night I was in a scuffle and I've slipped a punch and a guy closed the distance on me. And I think he landed a couple of elbows, and I didn't really know what was happening because with Taekwondo, it's always at distance that we keep fighting. It was always kicks and strikes and things. And before I knew it, I was flat on my back. And this guy obviously knew some type of grappling. It felt like probably 20 minutes on my back. I wasn't able to strike, wasn't able to kick. And eventually, they pulled the guy off me and they broke the whole thing up. And that was a massive realization for me that there's a world of fighting that I just never knew about. So years went by, I started looking more towards Muay Thai because I realized I've lost that fight almost at a clinch range. So I started looking at sort of how do I flow elbows, how to bring a knees into the fight. And at a gym I was training, was one of the straight blast gyms, the SPG gyms in South Africa. I was just doing the stand-up side. When the grappling guys, I always looked at it and thought, what are these guys doing? Right? So it never sort of really dawned on me that that's sort of what I wanted to do eventually. And I then became a stand-up coach for Crazy Monkey Defense, which was a spin-off from Straight Blast Gyms, and it was all about a striking platform. And moving into New Zealand at that stage, I met a guy, Carl Rex. He still heads up Crazy Monkey Defense in New Zealand. And he came from Grappling Science in Wellington. And he said, look, to have a comprehensive program, we need to start teaching Jiu-Jitsu as well. And Rodney King at that time, he's the founder of Crazy Monkey Defense, started bringing in what we called Monkey Jits, which is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu platform, but aligned similar to the Gracies to a more self-preservation, self-defense thing. And I started sparring with Carl, sort of from a mixed martial arts perspective. And every time I hit the ground, he was just all over me. I just didn't know what's happening. Next moment, I just had to tap, get up again. And I then asked Carl, hey, look, you're going to need to start showing me these things. And that was probably around 2011, 2012, when I started getting involved in it. And I then, moving to Melbourne, started training here with a guy called David Hunan, and started doing some teaching initially at the fundamental classes, and wanted to do my own thing. I felt that I lacked a really good, solid fundamentals platform. And looking around, I found Gracie Barr has got a really good fundamentals program, as well as the advanced and black belt program sort of built off that platform and foundation. And I then contacted up Professor Marcelo Rezende, who's the Oceania director and 4th degree black belt, had a conversation with him, and flew up to Sydney and back a number of times to really build a relationship, get to know Gracie Barr, understand the values behind it, and really wanted to take this into the Melbourne market, because there's a lot of other jiu-jitsu schools really focus on sport jiu-jitsu, and I felt that Gracie Barr was bringing the best of both worlds. So it brought Brazilian jiu-jitsu from a self-preservation, but sport jiu-jitsu as well for those guys that's into competitions. I've opened my school in 2016, and we've been going quite strong now, and just massively growing year on year in terms of member numbers and the brand getting that out in the market and making a difference in people's life. Because a lot of times we focus on a reality-based self-defense, rape prevention workshops, anti-bullying, and free community workshops like that. Yes, I think that's making a difference in people's life.
That's awesome. So what made you do the transition from New Zealand to Australia?
I was asked by I've got a sort of an IT project management background as well in information technology. And I was working in the systems and integration space at that stage, delivering large programs of work. And one of the employers decided to open a software business within Australia, and then asked me to relocate to Australia, which I did in 2015 to help them to set up the business. And then a year after that, I've opened up Gracie Barr. So, but that's the main reason why I moved.
Gotcha. And how long you been doing jiu-jitsu?
Probably from 2011, I would say. So about 9 years in total.
Okay, nice. And we do have a question. Hey, Opoku, we have a question. Live in Australia, traveling to other countries. Do you compete to travel? Traveling to other countries to compete? Do you do any of that?
Not anymore. I used to. In the younger years, I'm 42, to be honest. So I'm now at a stage where I'm still competing, primarily locally. So I'll be doing the Pan Pacs, the Victoria State Championships, as well as nationals. Probably about 4 or 5 comps, but mainly local or within Australia. My younger years, used to travel out to the UK, competed in St. Petersburg in Russia, Rosario, Buenos Aires and Argentina. So been around and just competed in a number of places. But my focus nowadays is more on the next generation, I guess. So it's coaching well, setting up schools, and more on the business side of it.
Yeah, that can definitely. I guess you just pretty much maintain your weight while you're competing. You don't have to worry about.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm generally not focused on a weight category. Whatever weight I'm at, I'm happy to go in and compete.
Yeah.
I find with the Masters, where I'm at now, is there's not a lot of competitors around, funny enough. There's probably a lot of comps that I go to. There's about probably 6, maybe 8 competitors if I'm lucky. So I get maybe 2, if I'm lucky, 3 rolls in a competition. Younger years, not really, because I think part of my routine and being young and being exposed to that, I've always had a good disciplined routine where I follow a nutritional plan. I work closely with a nutritionist that I check in every 3 to 6 months, depending on comp preparation and so forth. I work out in terms of comp preparation twice a day. So I'll do strength and conditioning as well as probably an hour of grappling and then sort of repetition and drilling as well. So I think that preparation and then the maintenance during the year when I'm not competing keeps me within that weight of about 85 to 87, maximum weight of about 90 kilograms.
Gotcha. Cool. Now we're starting to have more questions. I want to make sure they get their questions answered. I do have my own also. So Ekane's asking, how's your experience at the 10th Planet? I assume I did see they have a NoGi Summit over at your place, Australia. And I'm going to pull this up, actually. I'm going to stalk your Facebook on here. Here's the Calterra that you're talking about. And then I do see other people that you take a snapshot off. So tell us about your experience over there.
Oh, awesome. To summarize it in one word. I think with the NoGi Summit, we brought, in my view, probably some of the best competitors in the world into a single place that people can learn and meet and greet and socialize with over 3-4 days. Where what I found is with other summits or seminars, you go in for 2, maybe 3 hours, and that's it, overdone and dusted. What was good with the NoGi Summit is that if you're in early, you get to meet, you get to chat with these guys. At night, there's socialization. You go out together, you go out for dinner, you go out for lunch and lunchtimes. And it's just a good vibe sitting around having a chat to these people, and everyone trained together. It's not like the people that's at the seminar presenting their content is not actively involved. So they're actively walking the floor and teaching. Now with Calterra, a really, really humble guy, amazing technician. If I look at his not competitive career only, but being on the mat with him as well and asking him to explain stuff and to actually show and demonstrate on me, I was just blown away with the amount of pressure that I can get out of his size and his weight and his maneuverability. And his principle-based understanding of Jiu-Jitsu was just the next level. So I really enjoyed the seminar, and I'll be back there next year again. I just found it really valuable.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime you can go to like a 10th Planet NoGi seminar or summit, definitely go. Because I've been a couple times over at Portland, Oregon, when they had it over there. Definitely great stuff. Here's Lachlan. That's the other question. Sorry, my not what I want here.
Gosh.
And yeah, that was the other question. Did you get a chance to train with Livia and Lachlan?
They were at the summit as well. And funny enough, last year, I felt that I really wanted to learn the leg lock game. And I've then booked Lachlan to do probably about 10 private sessions with him to really get an understanding of the way he teach and the way he presents his content, which was really good. It, again, sort of peeled layers off my eyes and understanding of just the basic entry. I could do the finishes, but the entry was, and the positioning of getting in the positions is what I struggled with. So managed to train with him both there as well as privately, and had him out of my school for a number of seminars as well, and Livia as well. Really good. Again, as most people know in the Jiu-Jitsu community, most people are really humble. happy to share knowledge and just sort of hang out. So really had a good time.
Nice. That's another thing. Anytime, especially if you're coaching and teaching, you're always trying to find their concepts and their way to presenting their concepts and how they're teaching, for sure. And that's something I'll eventually want to pick your brain on as we go through. Now we have the Hingerton, Josh Hinger here also. Did he teach also?
He did, yes, he did. And we had a good lunch afterwards that I tried to pick his brain on the class structure and the way he teach and how he get to be where he's at, which is really good. And I think he came back to the amount of sparring that is done, and not full out sparring, but progressively resisting sparring. So Josh said that in a session, they would spar probably, if it's an hour session, 45 to 50 minutes would be sparring. So it is all about a live training, less drilling, more position-specific sparring, and solving problems on the go. And if need be, stop, go back, let's sort of validate, check where we are, and then keep going. Which was interesting because the way I've taught up until that time was I would spar, but it's probably about 30 to 40% of the session. The rest of the session was around, let's understand the principles and the techniques behind the position, and then also the submissions and escapes and transitions if need be, which opened my eyes to the importance of sparring and being more open to sparring, but not just full out sparring, but progressively increasing that resistance as we go. And I found that really valuable.
Yep. How are you able to transition, format that with your newer level belts, and then you got your mid to advanced level? So how are you able to format that, the sparring?
I think part of it was around, it's firstly setting expectations. Is because we used to be, I don't want to say, let's go in and spar hard type of thing. And it was about setting expectations initially to say, look guys, we want to spar, but if we're going to constantly spar at 80, 90, 100% intensity, injuries occur, right? Especially when there's frantic movement in a scramble, that's where people generally get hurt. So what I was suggesting is let's spar at about 30, 40% to start off with, and then progressively increase it. And if need be, you should be free to raise your hand and say, hey, look, let's pull back a bit, or let's stop this, let me understand this better, and let's problem solve it there. So first it was talking to the guys, setting the expectation that this is what I want them to do. So instead of beating your opponent, let's learn. Let's develop each other. It's not so much about submitting the guy in front of you and dominating him. It's we together in the same team. How do we turn this over that we get still a decent role, but we learn out of the experience as well. So that took a while because the people were so used to just going in and smash people at the beginning. So now and then, especially when I'm sparring it, I say, hey, let's pull back a bit. And I think besides setting expectation is that one-on-one time when I'm rolling with them, you can feel when someone is really out there. And sometimes you open, you accept the invitation, you keep rolling. Other times it's just like, hey, let's slow down a bit. Let's work things through. And that, from a higher belt perspective as well, I've asked them when I do spar for a lower belt, not to take advantage of it, but again, take that as an opportunity to coach and to teach, as opposed to dominating and winning. So slowly but surely it's changing. I'll have to see when we get back in the mat how it's going after COVID. I think everyone is hungry and wanting to get back to it. But yeah, I think I'll just reinforce the message as we go.
So tell us how you're able to adjust during the COVID times as a business owner. What are some of the things you're able to figure out, problem solve through everything that's going on right now?
Luckily, we were quick to pivot. And what I meant with that is when COVID struck, Gracie Bar as an organization were one of the first associations to say, let's take things online for the member safety. So we got notified on the first day, and the Monday we started teaching our first online class. So obviously we set up the Zoom structure. They helped and facilitated with the marketing around that, as well as the communication to our members. So that made it easier because they took care of that side of the business. Our focus was then on limiting the classes. So we had a full schedule per day, but then making sure that we still have enough classes there, but try and concentrate the amount of people that can get onto a Zoom class. We initially started teaching out of the gym environment where someone would walk around with an Osmo and record, and we would teach the same syllabus. And I was fortunate enough to have a 13-year-old son being out of the same household that I can use as a partner then to work with. So we immediately switched online and we were going strong. We've had about, I would say about 60% of our members suspended because they thought, well, it's going to be a 2-week thing. And slowly but surely they started activating the membership again because they realized it's not just the initial 2 week, this is going to be longer than that. So slowly but surely they started coming back on. I think a lot of our members found it difficult and frustrating working with either a dummy or by themselves, because it felt like doing katas, almost coming from a traditional martial art. When you work in isolation, it's like an imaginary opponent. So I think people took a while to warm up to that. But it was amazing when people started getting dummies and they started giving their dummies names, and people were getting pool noodles dummies and bags with wetsuits and things. So, and that was really good. People started adapting to that. And we are now at a stage where we're starting to go back. Next week, Monday, is when the gyms are opening again. So people are really looking forward to get back to it.
Right. Awesome. Are you taking some guidelines, social distancing guidelines, or are you just going to go ahead and go back to normal, or how are you going to approach it?
We started with contactless training unless you have a member of the same household. So that's going to be between the 22nd of June up till the 13th of July is going to be limited adult training. The kids are free to have full contact training. So what we did when it comes to the adult classes is they need to pre-book. So we implemented a booking system. And also we've then measured out the floor to allow either family spaces or individual boxes and areas on the floor where they can effectively train and work within that box. And we will obviously, when they come into the gym, check the temperature, allocate them to a box, and then they can put their things down and go straight to the box and start working out. We've also asked them if they have dummies to bring the dummy along. Up until, they will still be social distancing up until the 13th of July is when I understand the government restrictions lift completely. And then we'll be able to go back to what we understood normal to be full contact, per se.
Gotcha. Well, so let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about, you're also a mental health coach. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
I'm a Yep, you go.
Go ahead. You're a what?
I'm a free principles registered practitioner, which is a coaching. We deal with an executive coaching all the way through to mental health coaching. So it's a coaching paradigm that allows you to address a number of issues related to cognitive, behavioral, or experiential components that we experience in life.
Gotcha. So you're able to work with athletes and also not only in sports, but what also is going on within their general life. Is that what you're saying? Did you hear me? Sorry, hold on. Roan, your audio is cut off.
Sorry.
Oh, I can hear you now. Go ahead. Sorry. I was asking if, so as an athlete, you're not only help them mentally during the sports aspect, but also life, correct?
Definitely. Correct. Yes.
Okay. On there. So that's pretty cool. So do you have people within outside of jiu-jitsu that also seek for more extra mental coaching?
Definitely. I'm working primarily now in the sort of a teenage and younger generation. They're sort of 15 to about 25 years of age. I found that at that age, they're still open to be influenced. So they've got a little bit of life experience, but they haven't really formed views and opinions of the world around them and what they're going through and what's happening. So for me, it's a really easy marker to make a change and make a difference in. A lot of my clientele is ranging from kids that's either been severely bullied, kids struggling with high levels of anxiety, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or depression. That's sort of the four main components. And the
Okay.
bullying is one thing. The bullying, I generally work on teaching them a little bit of anti-bullying strategies, but also dealing with the thought processes around the bullying. From an OCD perspective, it's a bit similar to cognitive behavioral therapy, but also showing the people that whatever they experience is thought feeling related. So effectively a thought will enter their mind, and if they splash into that thought, then what's going to happen? They're going to start having that feeling. So that feeling may be stress, it may be depression, it may be whatever that may reset itself. So if they leave that thought alone, that thought will eventually move on, and they will drop back into the well-being. We start off by explaining people how experience work, how human experience work, and what's the factors involved. And once they get a good understanding of that, is then guide them into a realization of what they're experiencing and what's the way out of it. And a lot of times there's not much to do. It's about realizing it's all thought-based, and that whatever they're feeling is a mirage, is something that showed up in the thought system, and they're experiencing that now as sort of a signal of what's happening.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I want to try to get a little bit more specific, because I know there's a lot of, from past interviews, we've had questions, especially on how, if people are coming in, they're dealing with anxiety, depression, whether it's just as a hobbyist or as a competitor, you can have different perspective. How would you, and everyone's going to be different, but what are some of the main things you would say to someone who is trying to just go inside and train, but it's also, what are some of the things you might tell someone who is starting to train and is also trying to overcome anxiety and depression?
Look, I think firstly is understanding how the system works. And what I mean with that is, as human beings, we effectively are governed, our experiential life is governed by three factors. And these can be seen as almost spiritual truths. The first one of that is sort of mind. Now, mind may be the God concept for some people. It may be the bigger mind, depending if you're Buddhist, if you're Christian, whatever that is. And sort of take care of the universe, right? So there's that concept of mind. Now, that concept of mind brings forward thought. So if we start thinking about thought, excuse me, that is something that comes into the consciousness, which is the second spiritual truth. And the second factor in the human experience is this level of consciousness. And that consciousness brings to life whatever thought enters into that. So that if you look at the three concepts, it's mind, consciousness, and thought. Okay? And those three things is the governing factors that drives our human experience in any moment. So if someone have a if they're anxious or if they're depressed, what effectively is happening is there's a thought that enters the system. Consciousness brings that thought to life for them, and that's what they experience. Now, if they would sit with that thought and not do anything about it, that thought will eventually move on, right? So that anxious thought, that anxious feeling, if they either distract themselves and do something else, or if they realize it's just thought, that thought will move on, okay? But what we do is we go, oh, I feel anxious. Something must be wrong. So we then go up in our head, we start dissecting the thought, we start splashing around in that thought, we try to solve that thought. And because we keep splashing around it, we're enforcing, we're strengthening that feeling of that thought. So we feel a bit more anxious, and then we start going into that loop, and we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't really exist beyond the boundaries of our mind or our head. But the feeling, the anxious feeling, the depressed feeling, is a signal effectively of the thought that's in my head. it doesn't mean I need to go change the world outside of me to feel better. It means I need to realize it's just a thought and there's really nothing to do. Because once that thought moves on, I will fall back into well-being, into peace, into love. So that's generally where we start, and then we'll talk through specifics. And then people will obviously have questions, but what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
And it comes back to that inside out, because that's what it is. It's an inside out way of looking at life as opposed to outside in. Because we generally have a feeling, and then we try and attribute it to things around us and think, I need to fix this because I feel anxious, or maybe I need to prepare a little bit more, or I need to do more private sessions, whatever we can attribute it to, and try and find a solution. But if we take a step back and see it, that feeling is generated from the inside, giving us a feeling, there's not really much to do. It's a mirage.
Gotcha. We do have a couple questions. I know we're kind of short on time, so let's
that's fine. Let's do this.
Let's see. Seems hot over there. How do you handle a training camp if you are conditioning or outside?
It can be hot. Some days it can get up to 40 degrees. If we're doing training, most of the times from a conditioning perspective, if we do it outside, it will be early morning or late evening. If it is in-house, especially the gym, we crank up the air cons, close all the doors, and just let the cool air sort of go through. But otherwise, early mornings, late evenings. If I have to run and hit the road, that's the time to get out.
Gotcha. Yeah, as far as making preparations with cardio and things like that, for sure. Gotcha. He's just reiterating from that. Were you affected by the Australian fires at all?
No, fortunately not. No, I was one of the lucky ones in Melbourne. In the rural state Victoria, the state that we're in, definitely, but in the cities, not so much, beside clouds of smoke and ash and things coming over.
Gotcha. Well, good. Let's kind of close things up a little bit. What would you say is a positive message, quote, or a mantra that you would like to leave for others today, especially during these times?
I think if people realize, just let it be, just let it sit there, it will eventually move on. But if we can learn not to be scared of it and just sort of let it flow through the consciousness and that sort of blue sky effect, the cloud moving through, you'll see you'll be fine. There's nothing to do.
That's awesome. Well, appreciate it. Thank you so much for chatting with you, getting to know you a little bit more. I'm sure we're going to stay connected during these times. So I'm sure Kane, thank you so much for connecting us and having Coach Roan on. So she's ready to get back on the mats on there.
Awesome. We're back on Monday.
Right. On there for sure. All right. Well, I'll stay in touch with you. And then we'll see how much you're going to grow out there in your journey.
Awesome.
So thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. Have a good day.
Appreciate it. You too. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. Quick thing. I just want to let him off because I know he had to leave within 30 minutes. So I was trying to meet within his timeline and respect that. Appreciate everyone who was able to jump on. I will tomorrow morning. There's a live chat tomorrow, 9 a.m. Central Time. This is actually going to be really good. And I'll post about it too. He is, his name is Pastor Dr. Charles Karuku. He's out in Minneapolis. He has his own church out there. And they're out on the streets, beating the streets where the epicenter of where George Floyd was killed. And so they're out there changing the riots into revivals out there. So there's a lot of, there's big positive revival reconciliation that's going out there that people don't know about. So I want him to come on with his wife, hopefully his wife, at least him, to come on and share with what they're doing out there, because there's a lot of miracles, salvation that's going on there, reconciliation that's going out there, a revival that's going out there that people don't know about. But I've been following him and his group and his page. So I think it's good to have him on, and hopefully you guys can tune in if you're watching this tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Time. And we're going to have him, and definitely blessed to be able to have him, because he spoke in an interview with the niece of Martin Luther King, Alveda King. So I'm going to talk to him about that also. He's recently been on CBN. So he's a small pastor, but he's doing big things. And so out there, God has a great calling over there and what they're doing. So, all right, everyone, you all have a blessed day.